AWS is the world's most comprehensive and broadly adopted cloud platform. Millions of customers trust AWS to power their infrastructure and applications. Organizations of every type and size are using AWS to lower costs, become more agile, and innovate faster. AWS provides on-demand delivery of technology services via the internet with pay-as-you-go pricing. You can use these services to build and run virtually any type of application without upfront costs or ongoing commitments. You only pay for what you use. AWS gives you more services and more features within those services than any other cloud provider. This makes it faster, easier, and more cost-effective to move your existing applications to the cloud and to build anything you can imagine. From infrastructure technologies like compute, storage, and databases, to emerging technologies such as machine learning and artificial intelligence, data lakes and analytics, and Internet of Things. Building on AWS means you can choose the right tool for the job. For example, AWS offers the widest variety of databases that are purpose-built for different types of applications. With AWS, you can leverage the latest technologies to experiment and innovate more quickly. We are continually accelerating our pace of innovation to invent entirely new technologies you can use to transform your business. Like pioneering the serverless computing space with the launch of AWS Lambda, which lets developers run their code without provisioning or managing servers. And AWS built Amazon SageMaker, a fully managed machine learning service that empowers everyday developers and scientists to use machine learning without any previous experience. We are constantly expanding our global network of AWS regions, so you can access AWS services to build and run your applications from anywhere in the world. Each of these regions has multiple availability zones that are physically separated from each other and connected by low latency, high throughput, and highly redundant networking. This makes it easy to design and operate applications that are scalable, fault-tolerant, and highly available. Our infrastructure is built to satisfy the security standards of the most risk-sensitive organizations. You also have access to the AWS Partner Network, which has thousands of systems integrators who specialize in AWS services, and tens of thousands of independent software vendors who adapt their technology to work on AWS. With the largest community of customers across every industry, AWS has unmatched experience and operational expertise you can depend upon for your most important applications in every imaginable use case.
In AWS, particularly in data centers, we get to do fun stuff.
Our role is to protect the people, the data, and the assets.
My role is to maintain servers and networking devices, which empower how much capacity we can offer our customers.
I'm more so walking around the building, maintaining it to make sure that everything is running properly.
One day I could be doing install, the next day I could be dealing with racks.
For my position, there's a lot of focus on the infrastructure in terms of power and cooling.
We get to go around, fix things, do things with our hands. It really is hands-on operations work.
My main role is about technical related mechanical, electrical systems. We're not just limited to that.
I'm at the forefront of delivering capacity to our customers, and that helps AWS ensure the digital infrastructure of tomorrow.
At the beginning, I was afraid to not having enough experience to apply.
I didn't have a data center background. Didn't know what a server rack was.
You don't need to be an expert in the cloud to join AWS.
There was even one tech we hired that was a butcher for 20 years before he joined us.
I just needed to try, so I tried and it paid off.
It doesn't matter where you come from at AWS.
We seek diverse perspective and knowledge of people from all backgrounds.
AWS is very inclusive and diversity is definitely celebrated.
I'm a young black lady and I'm coming from France.
It's really nice to be able to connect with others.
Like you feel it's bigger than you.
Definitely join AWS because we are not like any other company. AWS gives us the tools and support that helps us change the world around us.
Every single person in the company seeks for that growth in terms of caring not only our customers, but to the world, to the environment.
AWS also gives us the autonomy to have a greater impact in the world around us.
Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us for another webinar session from Transform Africa. My name is Nelly. Great to have you joining us today. Please, as we go through the session today, feel free to interact with us. There is a question function on your device. You can also chat there. We would love to hear from you, and we will address those questions throughout the session. Particularly when we also get to the panel discussion section of the webinar. So today we are looking at data centers, particularly we are discussing AWS infrastructure in relation to data centers. And the topic today is alert, is your data center under attack? And to help us break down this topic, we have a panel with us. There is a number of team members that we have. Let me just quickly introduce everyone. First, we have Abayomi Olomu. Abayomi is our sales director here at Transform Africa. We are also joined by Abdurrahman Tani, who is a digital marketer here at Transform Africa. Thirdly, we have Uchenna Nyanunu, who is a sales manager here at Transform Africa. Last but definitely not least, we have Ikechi Awazie, who is a full stack developer at Transform Africa. Now, our presentation is going to be packed, so please grab your coffee, grab your tea, and just sit and listen to what we'll be delivering today. We're hoping that you can pick up a number of insights in terms of data centers and a number of things that you can implement for your organization, for your business. Today, our presentation will be given by Ikechi. As already mentioned, Ikechi uses a lot of AWS in his day-to-day work because he's a full stack developer. He has experience in web, content, and cloud development. He is constantly exploring various disciplines to broaden his programming pursuits. His areas of interest include security, cryptocurrency, and blockchain technology, just to name a few. So Ikechi has our...
Okay, good morning, everyone. Hope you have a wonderful time. Thank you, Nelly, for the opportunity to go through this presentation. I do hope that we'll be able to have a very interesting interaction. Okay, so once upon a time, there was a time when businesses were doing their job and serving their customers, and then an unforeseen action took place that shocked the business space. The pandemic came in, and some businesses that were lucky enough that put their infrastructures online were able to scale through, but some other businesses were not fortunate. And today now we have so many businesses that have learned from that issue and now putting their infrastructure online. But due to this new revolution, a new challenge has been posed, and it is this challenge that we want to bring to our customers. And the presentation is data protection. So we like to bring to you an alert that is your data security that's secured. So we'll be looking at data protection. What is data protection? We'll be looking at why we need to have data protection and why AWS, which is our partner, is very, very good when it comes to data protection. And we'll be looking at some other issues that have to do with data and also some of the solutions that we're planning to offer, we're going to offer. So what is data protection? Now, a lot of people believe that they understand what data protection is. If I were to ask everyone around here what data protection is, I'm pretty sure that each and every one of us will be able to explain what data protection is and how it is able to impact our business. But despite the fact that we have an idea of what is data protection, we see that statistics shows that we still have breaches, despite the fact that businesses and customers have an idea of what data protection is. We see from these statistics that data breaches happen almost 10 times. So based on this statistics, you see that 43% of the time, a single company can have like 10 breaches of data. And as one area that we can see this happening is in the crypto space. You see so many news on why data breaches taking place all the time. And it's so sad because once this kind of issues take place, there's a lot of things that happen. Data is lost, assets are destroyed. So this is as a result because data protection is not being implemented properly. Now, as you can see that when it comes to data loss and data breach, you see that a lot of customers have concerns concerning data loss. And who doesn't have, when you have data that you are using to do business and, we need data to be able to run business, and then that data is stolen, it can be very painful, it can be very heartbreaking. So you find out that despite the fact that people have data that they are running, you find out that there's a concern concerning data loss and leakage. And this doesn't also shy away in the cloud space, despite the fact that we have cloud technology running, we still see that people are still finding it as a concern to run their data or to run their business on the cloud. And it's not surprising. After all, when you talk about cloud technology, you talk about technology where you are not in charge of most of the infrastructures, somebody is in charge of it. So how do you ensure that the data that you are giving to this cloud infrastructure is secured? Or are you sure that your data privacy and your confidentiality is secured and not compromised? So people still have that issue of putting their data on the cloud. But despite this, we'll still find out that even though we have issues concerning business risk, and despite the fact that data are subject to attacks, but you still find out that putting your data on the cloud has so much benefits. It has so much benefits because number one is that it works 24/7. It's not impacted by downtime in a physical space. You also know that having your business online gives your customers the ability to gain access to your business without a downtime. So you find out that despite all these issues that people are thinking about, businesses are thinking about attacks, we still see that cloud computing is still the best. But what we want to let you guys know is that there is a very great way that you can protect your data, and AWS is one of the solutions that you can use to protect the data. So why would you want to consider using data protection on AWS? Number one, AWS, it's solid, it protects your property and trade secrets. AWS is a trusted brand. And one of the great things about AWS is that it helps in automating tasks. Now, many of you that have used AWS know how much automation goes into AWS services and how it saves time. If you were to have a physical infrastructure, you know how many things that you'll be able to set up when it comes to security. Even with the fact that you have to combine many vendors when it comes to security, you have to be able to configure these things manually, and it can be so overwhelming and cumbersome. But with AWS, you'll be able to automate your tasks, automate your time, and then reduce risk. One of the great things of AWS when it comes to data protection is also the fact that you can scale. So one of the things that bothers businesses or customers is when it comes to scaling. When you don't use the right infrastructure, scaling can be a problem. So with AWS, you are able to scale with your business. And the best about AWS is that it is ease of use, despite the fact that it has so much services, so much functions, but it's made easy for the client. So you don't need to wrap your head around the services or settings. Everything is made easy with AWS. Another benefit of AWS is compliance. AWS strictly follows compliance and global security protocols. And this is very important when it comes to data protection, because you would want to join an infrastructure that follows best practices. And AWS is one of those people or one of those organizations that follow global practices. Now, you can see organizations that have used AWS and has used them and helped to protect their data. We have FINRA, which is a financial regulator, and AWS have been able to help them not just to harden their security, but also to be able to automate their data protection, which is very great. Being able to automate your data protection without the hassles of doing them manually is one great thing. So FINRA is one organization that is partnering with AWS using their services. We also have Vodafone, which is a dominant player in the mobile phone space, about 30 million users. Just imagine with over 30 million users, you can see how much data that they have to process on the fly. So with AWS plugged into their system, they're able to manage security, they're able to manage their users, they're able to manage their data, and able to make sure that they don't have any breach or any of the data stolen. So that's Vodafone. Now, these are the services that AWS provides when it comes to data protection. And like I said before, a lot of people believe that they understand data protection. And despite the fact that they do, they still have breaches. The reason why these breaches take place is because of the approach in which they use for data protection. Now, there is no one size fits when it comes to protecting your data. The analogy of protecting your data is like when you build your house. When you are embarking on a project of building your house, you need to be able to make sure that when you're building your house, everything is right and everything is done properly. So if you build your foundation in your house and if your foundation is weak and the pillars of your house are strong or the windows in your house are strong, then your house will crumble eventually. Or if the foundation of your house is strong and the pillars are weak, your house will definitely come down, collapse. Or if your foundation is strong and the pillars of your house are strong, but the windows are not secured, then you're going to have people come in and steal your assets. So when it comes to data protection, AWS makes sure that everything that concerns data and the data is secured from every angle. Nothing is left untouched from when the request comes to their infrastructure to when the customer receives it. Everything is protected. So they have services like their Amazon Mercy. The Amazon Mercy is a pattern and data security service that checks all data available on the server. So it uses AI to be able to achieve this. So just imagine, uses AI to search through the data to make sure that there is no security issue, or there is no vulnerability, or there is your data is not exposed in a way. So Amazon Mercy uses its AI to be able to achieve this, And one thing you need to understand is that one thing about data is progressive. That means data is expansive. It grows. So maybe at the beginning, your data might start as little, but as time goes on, it grows. So you would want something that as the data becomes complex, it's able to still scan through the data and uncover vulnerabilities. And that's what Amazon Mercy does. Then we have AWS Certificate Manager that handles the certificate. You know how much importance we put to certificates. Without our SSL being in our infrastructure, we stand the chance of exposing our data. So AWS has the certificate manager to assist us in that. Then they don't just go as far as this, they also protect the hardware security. AWS Cloud VCM makes sure that your hardware is secured. We also have the key management that makes sure that your data is encrypted. Data encryption is very important because hackers these days, if just think about the kind of attempts that happens to you on a personal base on your email. You see so many hackers trying to get you to click some links, or you see people trying to get you to do some certain things that makes you exposed. So with AWS Key Management, all your data are encrypted and out of the reach of hackers. We also have the secret managers that helps with managing passwords and keys. One of the things you know when it comes to passwords is your password has to be strong and concrete. And so many people use weak passwords that make hackers easily able to hack into the system. But AWS has a feature that helps in this by giving you passwords that are strong and secured. So before we go into how AWS data protection works, let's remind ourselves about data center security, the fundamentals. Now, if you would want to have, there are so many cloud applications, there are so many cloud infrastructures online, but what are the fundamentals to make sure that the cloud infrastructure that you are using is best? So look at site selection. Now, one of the great things AWS does is that they have so many data center locations all over the world. And these data locations are available on the fly. There are some cloud infrastructures that have their centers in one area, and that's one country, but AWS has in so many countries, in so many zones. And when you look at this, this is great because they avoid a single point of failure. So imagine if you have your physical infrastructure and then something happens to that physical infrastructure, that means that you will not be able to do business. Well, AWS gets that covered. They have so many infrastructure, so many zones that enable you to enable your data to be stored and secured. So there's no one single point of failure. Redundancy. Now, one of the things about when it comes to data is being able to manage data. Redundancy is an expensive cost because imagine if you are trying to duplicate your data into 10 servers or 20 servers so that your data is available in all these servers, and when there is a breach in one server, then the other servers can be able to carry the data. Now, to do this on a physical level is very, very, very expensive. Businesses don't have that. But with AWS, this is done at a cost-efficient rate. You don't have to think about the infrastructure. AWS handles it for you. Data are kept and duplicated in as many servers as possible on the cloud. So AWS handles data redundancy very clear. Availability. Now, you want your data to be available. You don't want downtime. You don't want any issues. AWS handles downtime so well that even when issues like DDoS attacks occur, or when there is a problem with one of their infrastructure, they easily switch to the other one. So they have so many zones that are high on reliability. Each of their data centers all over the world is on alert, enabling you to be able to do your business, no downtime. Everything is done on the fly and on the cloud. Yeah. So now capacity. So we all know that businesses grow exponentially and linearly, and you wouldn't want to have your data in an infrastructure that when it's time to upscale or upgrade, then you now have to start moving your data from one infrastructure to another. This can be very disastrous and can also make you to lose business, because when your capacity is overloaded, you then now have to start moving your infrastructure to another place. It can cause you to lose business. It can cause you to lose customers, and nobody wants to lose customers. So with AWS constantly helps to monitor your capacity, and they alert you in such a way that when your capacity is full, they can upscale your capacity to be able to contain any traffic or any overload of traffic. So, like I said, when I started my story, that when the pandemic came, a lot of businesses were affected, and so many businesses had issues, and there was most business didn't really have a continuity and disaster recovery plan. So with AWS handles this. There's also a continuity plan. So in the event that there is a pandemic or there's something that makes you not be available to be able to handle your infrastructure, AWS handles all this on the fly for you. So with their business continuity plan, they are able to help to make sure that your data and business are running, even though you are facing challenges. And that's one of the great things, because if there's one thing we learned from the pandemic, is that you should always be prepared for the unexpected. They also have monitoring on the fly and logging. Each of the services they run has monitoring. It helps you to monitor. You have access to logs to be able to check on the fly what is running on your services. If your database is taking capacity, if so many services that you run that have to do with your business, AWS handles the monitoring. So you are not blinded, or you are not ignorant about what is happening on the fly on your infrastructure. And it's also 24/7. You have access to their support. They help you to be able to analyze. They can also help you if there's an issue that you're not able to resolve. So their monitoring is top notch and good and very great. Yeah. You can also connect your surveillance to AWS infrastructure, and they take their physical infrastructure, that's the surveillance, they give it a high priority. With your physical access, you are able to plug your CCTV to the AWS service, and this works remotely in AWS data infrastructure. They are able to, you can also have a multi-authentication on your infrastructure. So AWS makes sure that your alarms are created while they plug to your CCTV, and they do give this kind of infrastructure a high alert. So that's one of the great things about AWS. They take surveillance very, very serious. So device management. So AWS handles most of its assets, and they have an inventory management system that manages everything that apart from their own assets, they can also handle your own assets. So every of your assets that are on AWS are tracked. Everything is monitored. So you are in safe hands, actually, with a trusted brand. Yeah. Also, they also want to point out that apart from all the other assets, they also have their media storage devices. They take all this critical. Now, just imagine We know how much it is when we want to create assets, or when it comes to data protection, when we want to assemble infrastructures, you have to get these different vendors to be able to achieve data security. With AWS, there's compliance with devices, there's compatibility, because one of the things you notice is that sometimes when you are trying to manage infrastructures, you find out that some infrastructures are not compatible with each other. But with AWS, when it comes to device management, they make sure that each and every of the devices are compatible. Also, they also in their services, they make sure that they have things like power management, detection and suppression. They make sure that every of their infrastructure is up to date. Every of their infrastructure is protected. There are no fire incidents. There's nothing that will completely crumble their services. Also, when it comes to data protection, like I said, compliance is one very important thing, and AWS follows compliance. At the back of their services, they have risk management. They don't wait for chances to take place. They make sure that every vulnerability is accounted for, every security breach is accounted for, and there are no surprises, nothing that will take them unawares. They have their data center risk management and security. So what this means is that you don't need to worry about when it comes to whether they are following compliance or security. They are on top notch on this area. So now we come to the data protection. So now, like I said before, one of the errors that people make when it comes to data protection is that they approach data protection from one size fits all. But with AWS, they take their data protection in the form of when it comes to building a house. So everything from when requests come in to when it's processed is monitored and secured. So they have a foundational level of data protection, and that is when it comes to managing requests that come to the infrastructure. They have a lot of services that monitors their database, monitors the request that comes. Their storage is encrypted. Key management, make sure that passwords are not able to be broken. So they make sure that at the foundational level, their foundation is strong. Then on their intermediate level, now they harden their security system, make sure that all their infrastructures, when it comes to their storage, when it comes to their, they don't just make sure that the data on that's the infrastructure, or the data that you are using to house the infrastructure is secured. All other zones are also protected. On the intermediate level, they harden their security. So on the advanced level, they also make sure that the access or keys are protected. All the services that, when it comes to development, that have to do with other third-party services are monitored and secured. So at the end of the day, you have a total package where everything is hardened and everything is secured. So we have a lot of use cases on how people use AWS when it comes to data protection. Some people use data protection when it comes to their cloud storage and database. Some people use database even with their on-premise, that is when they have a physical server. Also, you can also protect your devices, your mobile phones. You can also protect sensitive data on the cloud. So there are so many use cases that you can do, even when it comes to developing your applications, and they're also user friendly with the DevOps. So there are so many use cases. So we have the data use case or an example. As you can see, the S3 bucket, which is a database, is connected to the Amazon Mercy, which, like I said before, is a pattern that scans each and every data on your storage. So as you can see that it makes sure that there are no data breaches. And once it detects a data breach, it's able to alert you through the notification and the monitoring to tell you that there's something that you need to do on your data. So in all, what I'm trying to share is that data protection should be part of your plan. It should be something that you should take as your insurance policy. So you shouldn't be reactive, but you should be proactive. So you need to make sure that you put data protection as part of your policy. So what are the key takeaways from this and for making sure that you take data protection serious? One thing we know is that once you integrate data into your plan or using AWS, burdens are reduced, costs are reduced, and you are very sure that your services are scalable. You get access to different services that harden your data security, and this helps you to be able to manage your business and your data on the cloud. So want to let you know that also when it comes to data protection, these are tips that we feel that should help you going forward. It's always great to schedule, and it's always good to schedule a consultation with an expert, and Transform Africa is there for you. We have experts that will be able to enable you to create your data protection and also help you with creating policies that will make sure that your data is safe. And we also monitor also your security and policies to make sure that they are up to bar and on time and also scalable. Yeah. We also do hands-on demo. So if you want to do a demo, we're happy to help you also with a 30-day free trial. So thank you for this. I hope you enjoyed yourself. And I do believe that from moving forward that you'll be able to take data protection as your insurance policy. Thank you. Handing over to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ikechi. That was a power-packed presentation, very comprehensive. You touched on a number of points, right? But if I can just sum it up, right? You have mentioned that with AWS, you're making sure that you are secure. The data center is highly available and it's also reliable. And one very important thing that you mentioned, especially in this period that we are in, we have just been experiencing a lot of digital transformation in the past, I would say in the past decade, and that is informing a lot of things that businesses are doing in terms of that technology, in terms of that infrastructure. But one thing remains at the core, truly important for every business, to make sure that your data is protected, and that includes also the data of your customers. So indeed, data protection is the lifeblood of your business. If your data is compromised in any way, in any form, then you know that it has a very, very big risk and hazard to your business. And how do we do that? How do you take that step to making sure that your data is protected? Is by making sure that you implore co-location services like those of AWS. But at this point, we are going to be going into panel discussion. We have just a few questions that we're going to be fielding. And the first one is in relation to some of the things that Ikechi was just touching through the presentation. This question reads, how has COVID-19 pandemic impacted IT organizations and the data center sector? I'll pose this question to Abayomi. I know it's a packed question, and there's so many ways that businesses have been impacted by COVID-19, but perhaps you can just sum up some of these points for us. So over to you, Abayomi. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Nelly. And I believe Ikechi has actually
spoken, in details about this particular point. But I'll just add a few. Specifically, I think we all know COVID actually impacted a lot of businesses negatively and positively. And in terms of IT organizations, we've noticed most IT organizations are now working remotely, which is one of the plus for employees and also for employers in terms of reducing cost and all that. But specifically for the data center space, I'll just group this into four. First, we've noticed a lot of trends around automation and robotics, whereby you have to reduce human intervention, because people need to work remotely, and you can access the servers from other remote locations as well. Then we've seen cases where robots have actually been used to install and also to swap servers, and in some cases as well to monitor interconnections and also security. So in terms of the trends and the impact of COVID-19, we've seen a lot around robotics, automation. Secondly, we've also seen a lot of impact around a shift to hyperscale. I think before 2016, and considering COVID, and also from when COVID happened, post-COVID till now, we've seen a lot of increase in hyperscale data centers. I think the number has grown to like 659 now, which has doubled what we used to have in 2016. So, and for this hyperscale, it requires a situation where servers are located physically closer to one another. So, and it requires less human intervention, reduces costs, labor costs, cost of acquiring different kind of professionals as well. And it also maximizes cooling efficiency. So we've seen a shift to hyperscale. Third is around connected ecosystem. A significant boom in connected ecosystem have been noticed as well post-COVID. Demand for digital services actually rose globally. Most people want to sell online. Most tech startups also want to build e-commerce platforms in order to enhance this connected ecosystem. And all these are driven by we're driven by COVID. So that's one thing I think, because businesses now need to deliver reliable, sustainable, and also scalability, which Ikechi also mentioned. So lastly, we've also seen a significant impact on modular and prefabricated facilities. So modular data center is expected also to grow, and it has actually started growing since COVID. It has grown significantly also, being driven by COVID as well. Then, modular data center as well, the increase in modular data centers offer a lot of benefits, scalability, reducing time to market, and even SMBs can actually plug onto this. So those are the key areas that we've seen in terms of the impact of COVID on data centers and IT organizations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abayomi. We can never deny the negative impact of COVID-19, but I'm so happy that you highlighted on some of the positive outcomes, especially when it comes to technology and businesses and organizations taking advantage of technology. It's incredible how just in the past 2 years, we have seen so many businesses, small, medium, large, leverage technology, and how that has improved on productivity, how that has improved also their teams and how their teams work, and most importantly, how they deliver service to their customers. So thank you very much for that. So moving on to the second question, this one is going to go back to our presenter. So what factors are important for customers to evaluate as part of that disaster recovery plan? So Ikechi, back to you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a very great question. When it comes to disaster recovery plan, I believe that there are about some factors that we can look at. First thing a customer would want to do is to establish the fact that they must have a reliable supplier relationship. That means that you should be able to partner with organizations or brands that will be able to help you when it comes to your disaster recovery. Like we're talking about AWS, you don't want to flow with brands that when you need them to restore, then there's a breakdown. Also, you need to set your priorities when it comes to your recovery. When you have a downtime or when there's a disaster, you need to know which areas need to be restored. You need to know, because you can't restore everything at the same time. So you need to be able to set your priorities and make sure that when there's a disaster, that there are certain areas that need to be restored. Then you also need to have a team of people that will be able to make sure that this disaster recovery is successful. So you need to have people and make sure that have people that will be able to work on this when it happens, and you don't want people that will not be able to do their job. Also, you need to make sure that the equipment are up to bar and reliable. So because it won't make sense that when your disaster strikes, then you will not, your equipment are also falling too. So you want to make sure that you have a backup plan, like an infrastructure, when this issue happens, that you'll be able to fall back to. And one of the most important things you also need to take as a factor is you need to be able to plan ahead of time. You know, if there's one thing that we learned from the COVID is that a lot of businesses didn't have this discovery plan early on, and it impacted so many businesses because they became reactive rather than prepare. So they became reactive. So one factor, you need to be able to have timelines. You need to be able to plan for your disaster to make sure that you don't wait for it to happen. So you need to be able to invest in the technology, invest in the data to make sure that when it comes, then you'll be prepared. And the last thing is for you to have a communication plan. So when this disaster occurs, you need to be able to have a communication plan that works with your employees. You don't want to start setting it when this happens. That's actually all when it comes to disaster recovery.
Thank you so much, Ikechi, for that. And that's another interesting point of discussion, right? I think what the onset of the pandemic made a lot of people think, especially in the business space, is that you need to have a disaster recovery plan. Your business needs to have a disaster recovery plan. And all of the points that you mentioned, you know, they're not just in reference to IT, right? They're in reference to everything. Your entire business needs to have a disaster recovery plan, so that when things like a pandemic happen or any other disaster, even natural disasters happen, you are already proactive because you have already put something solid in place, so that whatever comes your way, you know the next steps of action to take. So thank you for that, Ikechi. Now moving on to the third question, says, does AWS allow third-party data center access? So I'll be handing this one over to Abdurrahman. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Nelly. All right, so regarding third-party access to some of these customers' data, this is only restricted to giving access to AWS employees. However, this will only reduce the number of times to which random people come to visit customers' data. So for this to be granted to AWS employees, they have to request an approval, which means that they must apply just to ensure that they get this verification before they proceed to accessing customers' data for a valid business justification. So However, these requests are granted based on the principle of least privilege, where requests must specify to which layer of the data center the individual needs access. And of course, these access are time-bound. So these requests are approved by authorized personnel, and access is revoked after the request time expires. So once granted admittance, individuals are restricted to areas specified in the permission, just to avoid unusual activities going on in customers' data and some unusual.
Thank you so much, Abdurrahman. I think we can all agree that we all appreciate a solution that is not boxed in, a solution that does not stand by itself, right? But can work with other solutions, other providers. So thank you so much for that. Now, the last part of our panel discussion, this question reads, what does data center selection mean and why is it vital to organizations? So I'll post this one to Uchenna. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Nelly. And this is a very good question. But to answer it, I know we all know what data center is, but let's just still refresh our mind with it. I would say it's like a facility composed of network, computers, storage systems, and computing infrastructures that an organization used to assemble, process, store, and disseminate large amount of data. So that is what data center is all about. And we all know also that it's classified into tiers, and we have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And the word selection that is attached to it is an English word that tells us about the process of picking one out of many, or the process of putting something in place ahead of other options. So for me, I want to also let us also look at it from the angle of, there are some criteria when you are selecting data centers. There are some criteria you need to consider before we talk about the importance of it to the organization. And in the presentation, a lot of them was touched also. We'll have, like, for example, avoiding disasters. Can be when you're trying to set up your data center, you must think of that. Is one criteria. When you're selecting, you need to think of avoiding that disasters. And also you need to consider network carrier availability. Is very key when you are trying to do this process of selecting for yourself a data center as an organization. Availability of power. This side that we are, we know what power is all about, and we know what we face in trying to get alternate to the power when it's not available. So you need to also consider that. Accessibility to it, being transport and accessibility is factors that you need to, or criteria that you need to consider. Then you talk of the land and the building codes. All those things are part of it. Climate condition and the safety and security. All these things were touched by Ikechi when he was presenting. And when you actually do this very well, the importance, just in summary, what is the importance of this selection of it? It's just for you to be able to choose the right data process for your business that will help that business to function effectively, maximally, and have the productive curve that you want in terms of return on investment. So that is just it from my own. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Uchenna. And I think your last point summed it up very nicely, right? It's about choosing the right fit, the right solution for your business that will enable you to do all the things that you need to do, right, effectively. So thank you so much to our panel for just fielding those questions. It was an interesting discussion today. This whole data center discussion is always an interesting topic to look at. And I think AWS has proven a very powerful solution with the Power Packed presentation that Ikechi delivered today. Hopefully next time when you catch us on another session, we will possibly have a look at a demo so that you can see some of the features of AWS in practice, right? So in closing, we just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for your time, for just coming into this session, giving us your time and listening in. We hope that every time that we meet for this session, for our webinar sessions, there is always some insights that you live with and something that can take your organization to the next level. We are a firm believer in technology being a tool of transformation, especially here in Africa. So please stay in touch with us and stay connected with us. We are available on Facebook and LinkedIn at Transform Africa Limited. We are also available via web at transformafricalimited.com. For any questions, queries, if you're interested in a demo, please reach us at services@transformafricalimited.com. From myself, Nelly, and the rest of the team at Transform Africa, we wish you a fantastic day and see you next time. Thank you.